What you're about to hear is an excerpt from a conversation with Jonathan Moss of Bike Portland. If you want to hear the whole thing, you can become a Patreon supporter by going to patreon.com/thewaroncarspod.
I heard you say something about there was a chapter in the book that was really life-changing for you, the chapter about nature.
Yes.
I think a lot of people might not make that connection. I got to say, one of the funniest things about the book that I appreciate is how direct the chapter titles are.
Yeah.
Literally chapter names: cars ruin childhood, cars ruin nature, cars are killing us, cars ruin society, cars are unjust. You're very reasonable with these. But the nature one,
Yes.
right? That's what you said. So tell me more about how that was such an important chapter for you.
I'm the kind of person that I really love being in nature, despite the fact that I'm a native New Yorker, really love the urban life. But I still have spent a lot of my time pursuing the outdoors and as wild as possible. And so I really value wild space. And one of the reasons that I think this movement is so important is land use and preventing greenfield development and endless sprawl that takes up all the space that we have and kills everything. So, I mean, I already was aware that land use pattern of endless suburban expansion was really bad for natural areas. But it wasn't until I read Ben Goldfarb's book, Crossings, which I highly recommend to everybody, that I started to sort of open my mind to all the different ways that cars are hurting nature. And then we also interviewed Paul Donald, who wrote a book called Traffication. He's a UK researcher, and he too really breaks down all the ways that this is happening. And it's just really pretty much everything that cars do. I mean, the ways that cars strike animals, including insects. I don't know about you, but when I was much younger and you would drive through the countryside, there would be a lot of bugs on the windshield. That doesn't happen as much anymore. It's not because they invented something special about cars that makes the bugs fly off of them. It's because there aren't as many bugs. And that's actually really disturbing, right? But it's also just the roads themselves are an incredibly onerous burden for the landscape to bear. Not only do they have fumes coming off of them, not only do they have noise coming off of them, not only do they have runoff coming off of them, but they also divide habitats and create genetic islands that reduce genetic diversity, which of course is even more important in an era of climate change. And for species to be able to move around is also more important. And roads are just constantly being built all over the world. And I really started putting together the pieces, the damage that we're doing. And I think that there's a figure that there are something like 70% fewer animals in the world than there were in the 1970s. And roads have a big thing to do with that. And Paul Donald in his book and in his interview with us really argued that cars are perhaps the thing most responsible for that decline. And I think people just don't realize it. And the poignancy is, how do most of us access nature? Because there's no good access to nature by public transportation for the most part. We access it by driving. And even those of us who really try to leave no trace, we're getting to the trailhead on a road, and that road itself is damaging. So I guess it's a little bit overwhelming emotionally, right? Like so many things that have to do with the destruction of our natural world and the climate crisis, especially, to sort of say like, wow, everything about this is killing life on this planet. And that's a big thing to think about. But for me, it's now something that I can't stop thinking about. I think that's the thing that was most surprising to me in researching the book, was just how totally terrifying that is.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked us, like, are you more or less radicalized now, having written the book? And I will say that I am more radicalized, because there were things in doing the research that surprised me. And Sarah did much of the research for the nature chapter, and just in reading what she wrote, through the normal process of us finishing the book, I was just like, my mouth was on the floor, because we don't think about the very expansive ways in which cars really do ruin everything. Because those same people who might say, okay, there are 70% fewer animals on this planet than there were, 50 years ago, would make the connections to like agriculture and the fact that we've destroy the rainforest to, raise cattle. But they would not for a minute say that the interstate highway that gets the agriculture workers to their jobs and gets the meat from the meatpacking plant to the grocery store is responsible as well. And so part of what we're trying to do with the book is to get people to make those connections and to see cars as this determinative force in our lives, whether you drive or not.
How did you put it in the book? You said the goal is to like make someone see the water. What was that? I didn't get it
There's
right.
a Marshall McLuhan quote about, the fish knows nothing of the water, right? It's an old joke. The fish are swimming along and another fish comes by and says, water sure is nice today. And the other two fish are like, what's water? And that's sort of how we see cars. They're just the background. We kind of joke in the book that you're born and you're put in a car seat and driven home. And then a funeral procession takes you in a hearse to the cemetery and everything is driving in between. And so much so that we just don't question it. It's this huge force. It dictates where we live, how we live, who we socialize with, how we access food, how we access medical care, education, employment, all this kind of stuff. So we want people to see that this was built, it can be unbuilt, and you got to start. Just getting people to see the problem is the first step towards solving it.